Welcome to this overview of the European Reference Network Clinical Patient Management System. What we are going to show is version 1 of the system, which is by its nature a dynamic, evolving system, where new content and improved features are a constant factor. New requirements will be assessed and analyzed for an eventual implementation in upcoming releases. The first thing you will need, in order to start using the system, is an EU login. If you do not already have one, you can create it by clicking on the link on the right. Once your EU login has been created, you will also need to request access to CPMS itself. You can do this by clicking on the second link. This will take you to the European Institutions Application Request System, called SAS. Requesting access is a simple matter of selecting your ERN, country, and healthcare provider. The request will be approved or declined by the ERN coordinator. Once your access is approved, you can access CPMS by clicking on Login via EU Login. Once you are logged into the system, you will see the healthcare providers and ERNs you are affiliated with on the left, and on the right you will find links to several user guides for the system. In the middle, there is a collection of educational videos on how to use CPMS. At the top, you will see a small question mark. It stores a direct email link you can use to contact the support team. It also has a FAQ with the most common questions for CPMS. Each ERN you are a member of has a dashboard, which can be accessed from the menu at the top. The dashboard shows your meetings, tasks, panel invitations, panels you are contributing to, and panels you are leading. From the dashboard you will also be able to access the preferences. This is where you can select which of the ERN's thematic areas you are specialized in. This menu is unique to each ERN you are a member of. These settings determine for which panels you can be invited to contribute. The CPMS also features a map. It shows the location of all healthcare providers who are members of the ERNs. It can display all the healthcare providers at the same time, or you can view them by ERN. The system is capable of zooming in all the way down to street level. From the healthcare provider view, which can also be accessed from the top, you will be able to view a list of your currently enrolled patients, as well as the option to enroll new patients. When enrolling a patient, you need to enter an enrollment date, as well as specifying a date for consent. There are 3 kinds of consent that can be selected when enrolling patients. Consent for care is the minimum requirement in order to be able to open a panel for a patient. Consent for ERN databases and registries means that the patient allows their data to be stored inside the ERN registry, so it will be made available to people with access to the database and registry application inside CPMS. We will demonstrate this later in this video. Finally, there is consent for research. This means that the patient gives consent to be contacted in relation to future research projects, at which point the purpose of the research has to be clearly specified to the patient. The consent forms can be downloaded directly from the enrollment page. Lastly, you need to enter the patient's name, gender and date of birth. Once the patient is enrolled, the record can be found in the search or on the patient list. By selecting the patient record, you will be able to open a new panel. When opening a new panel, you can assign a nickname to your patient to make it easier to identify the panel in case yourself or participants are working on multiple panels. You also need to give a description of the panel, as well as the reason for opening it. Similarly, you have to specify the healthcare provider responsible for opening the panel, and the point of care specialist dealing with the patient. This person is not necessarily an ERN member. Finally, you need to specify which ERN the panel is related to, as well as the thematic areas it concerns, and lastly, who is the leader of the panel. The lead can be changed later, if necessary. Now your panel is opened. and you can start filling in the various data forms. This is the initial completion of the forms, meaning you will be able to edit the forms, or add more information later, in the patient journey. There are too many forms that can be filled in to go over them all in detail in this overview. Some of the highlights are the rare disease diagnosis form, which allows you to enter the diagnosis code in ICD-10, ICCC3, or ORPHANET. In all data fields that have preset values, you will see a magnifying glass. This allows you to navigate the values step by step. You can also write manually in the data field, and the system will automatically search the values. CPMS also has a full-featured pedigree tool, which allows you to map out your patient's pedigree in great detail. Navigating the data forms is made very easy, using the navigation column on the left. The form you are currently editing will be highlighted in gray, and you can jump from form to form, simply by clicking on the name of the form you wish to go to. Finally, you can attach files to the referral record, which can be done manually, or if your hospital is IHE compliant, can be done automatically. Batch uploading can be performed using FTP. Alternatively, single or multiple files can be dragged directly onto the screen under the Add Files header. CPMS allows most file types to be uploaded, and if the file you are adding is a DICOM image, the system has a built-in viewer which will allow you to add additional information to the image. There are several different edits you can perform. For example, you can invert the colors of the image, you can zoom in and out, increase or decrease the brightness, you can also create measurements directly onto the image. You can flip the image vertically or horizontally. Similarly, the image has a dedicated comment field, where you can write information related to the image. Edits and comments will be saved, and other members of your panel will be able to see these when viewing the image. Panel members will also be able to comment and perform edits on the image. You can also add complete series of DICOM images that together form a small animation. In the example shown on the screen here, is a series of 90 separate images, which the system automatically recognizes as a series. You can control the speed at which the animation is shown. You cannot annotate the entire series, but you can pause the playback and annotate the individual images. Finally, the DICOM viewer can also display DICOM videos. The annotation tools are not available when displaying videos. However, you can still use the comment field on the timeline on the right, if you wish to comment on the video. Once you have filled in as many of the forms as needed, you will be able to proceed to the panel selection. At this point, you can already use the system's meeting function. We will show this in more detail at the assessment stage. By clicking on the Invite Members button, you will be able to invite other specialists to contribute to your panel. If you are not sure which other specialists would be the best qualified to contribute to your panel, you can request coordinator assistance, which will invite the coordinator of the ER concerned to assist with assembling the panel. The coordinator will also be able to invite members from other ERNs, or even guests, who are not members of any ERN. The available invitees are based on the thematic and sub-thematic areas we demonstrated earlier in the user preferences. Once invited, the invitees will receive a notification that they have been invited to contribute to a panel. The leader of the panel will be able to set an invitee as the leader of the panel, and will also be able to accept or decline the invitation on invitee's behalf, as the panel cannot proceed until all invitations have been accepted or declined. On the screen now, we have logged in with one of the invited specialists. The panel invitation appears on the member task list on the invitee's dashboard. From here, it is possible to accept or decline the invitation. The content already added to the panel can be viewed before accepting or declining the invitation. One special feature to note here is that the panel leader and the doctor we are currently logged in with are from the same hospital. What this means is that when the invitation has been accepted, this doctor will also be able to push the panel to the next stage, despite not being the panel leader. If you decide to move your panel forward before all invitations have been accepted or refused, those that are still pending will automatically be set as refused. Your panel has now moved to the data completion stage. This is where you will be able to revisit the data forms you filled in earlier. At this point, you panel members will have had a chance to look at your patient data forms. Panel members might need additional information in order to be able to make a proper assessment. At the next stage of the patient journey, panel members can write comments or questions on the timeline, which the leader or other members can see and reply to. You can add new information to the patient file, or you can edit the data you have already entered. Updating the data forms can be done by the panel leader, or, if one of the members of the panel is from the same healthcare provider as the leader, he or she will also be able to update the forms. Once the data forms have been updated and the panel is ready to continue, you can move on to the assessment stage. You will not be able to move back and edit the data forms again after the data completion stage, unless you completely restart the entire panel, which can be done by selecting the patient from your healthcare provider patient list. We will demonstrate this at the closed stage. The assessment stage is where the panel members can write their contributions. Arriving at an assessment can come from using the virtual meeting component of the system. When setting up a meeting, you can either set it as a new meeting, or you can make it part of an already existing meeting group. The meeting groups can be set up by the ERN coordinator. For ad hoc meetings, you need to enter the date, time and duration of the meeting. Once you click on Schedule Meeting, you will be able to select the panel members you wish to invite. Once the meeting has been scheduled, you and the panel members that were invited will be able to enter the virtual meeting room, which will be accessible 5 minutes before the start of the meeting. Once inside the meeting, you will be able to see the other participants if they have cameras connected. You will also be able to share content by using the share screen function. When you are ready, your contribution can be recorded by clicking on the Record Contribution button. You can attach a file to your contribution if required. The system also asks how much time was spent on the contribution. This field is not mandatory. On the timeline, you can see which members have made contributions. To view them, click on the cross to enlarge the window. It will be possible to come back and edit the contributions later, if necessary. Once all the contributions have been recorded, the panel can move on to the outcome stage. The outcome, as the name suggests, is the stage where the outcome of the panel is recorded, whether it be a treatment, diagnosis or anything else. Only the panel leader can record an outcome. You can attach a file to your outcome, if required, as long as it does not contain any personal identifiable information. When an outcome is recorded, which at this stage is still in draft form, other members of your panel will be able to see it, and if needed, can make comments on it. A unique feature of the outcome stage is that, if for any reason it is required, you can move your panel back to the previous stage. For example, if a panel member wants to change his or her contribution, you can now move your panel to the sign-off stage. Here you can revisit your outcome and, if required, add additional information to it before you sign it off, at which point, it will not be editable anymore. Alternatively, you can save the outcome, if you are not ready to sign it off. However, the panel cannot move to closed until the outcome is signed off. Once the panel has been signed off, you can click on the outcome document to produce a PDF file, meant for the point-of-care specialist, declared when you open the panel. The document contains the information from the signed-off outcome. Before moving to the closing of the panel, you are asked to fill in how much time was spent on the panel. Was it a success, and was there an outcome? When the panel is closed, you cannot change anything anymore. However, you can still restart the panel, if necessary. The option to restart a panel is available throughout every stage of the patient journey, except when the panel is archived. In order to restart your panel, you need to go to your list of patients. When you click on the patient, you will see a list of panels opened for that patient. You can select the panel you wish to restart, and click Cancel or Restart Panel. You need to enter a reason why you are restarting the panel. When the panel is returned to its initial stage, all information that was initially entered is kept, so no need to complete the data forms again. Similarly, all panel members that were part of the panel before restarting it are still part of it now, so you will not need to invite them again. Also, in the closed stage, you have the button, Make Data Available for ERN Databases and Registries. This button only appears if the patient gave consent to use their data in the ERN's databases and registries. Pressing the button will make it possible for users of CPMS, with access to the research application, to use the data to build reports. When working in the research application, you can drag as many items as you need to the selected tables column. When done, you can save your query. When saved, it will be available to other researchers from the same ERN. You can also use the query to generate an Excel file. After closing the panel, you will arrive at the final part of the patient journey, which is the archived stage. When the panel is archived, it can only be seen by health professionals from the hospital the patient was enrolled under. The panel leader can also find it in his or her ERN dashboard under My Panels. The archived panels cannot be modified. The only thing you can do, apart from seeing the patient file, is to see the outcome letter. We hope you have enjoyed this brief overview of the clinical patient management system in its current form. And remember, our support team is available to answer any questions you may have.